Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to StrongFirst, the School of Strength. These are my colleagues, senior instructors, and serious students of BJJ, Mike Perry and John Spizzano. I'm Pavel Cацулin, CEO. We're honored to bring our strength and conditioning expertise to improve your game on the mat. I'm going to say a few words. I'm going to take a 50,000-foot view on strength and conditioning. In Russian sports science, physical preparation is divided into GPP, general physical preparation, and SPP, special physical preparation. SPP is the same thing that Westerners know as sport-specific training. GPP is something that carries over to a great variety of applications. So for example, let me give you an example of a great GPP exercise and a poor GPP exercise. The barbell squat. If you do barbell squats, you're going to run faster, you're going to jump higher, and so on and so forth. And on the other hand, well, you also gain weight, which might not necessarily help you on the mat, but that's a different story. But if you're doing the leg extension, you're only going to get good at the leg extension, which means that the squat is a great GPP exercise and the leg extension is worthless. Now, SPP in the Russian terminology is divided into SPP1 and SPP2. SPP2 is a highly specific exercise, highly specific to your sport. So to use a grappling example, if you are going to lunge, explosively lunge, simulating a takedown using a rubber band for resistance, that's an example of SPP2. While SPP1 occupies a gray area between GPP and SPP2. So it's sort of specific. So on the high level, the only athletes that should be doing SPP2, highly specialized exercises, are elite athletes training under elite coaches. Nobody else needs to do these exercises. For the rest, you need to practice GPP and SPP1. This is exactly what we're doing in this program. StrongFirst is an expert in general physical preparation and even more so in general strength preparation. In addition, we brought the expertise from a number of instructors, StrongFirst certified instructors, and other friends of StrongFirst who are BJJ black belts and other highly experienced practitioners and coaches. So we're bringing you the SPP1 segment there as well. So kettlebell swings, kettlebell get-ups, cleans and jerks, those exercises have the highest return on your investment. Let's also not forget that when you're looking for specificity in your training, you already are getting a lot of specific training on the mat. So do not get too specific. Stay with GPP and stay with SPP1. The next thing to say is, why are we using kettlebells for this program? There are many ways that you can get yourself in shape for your sport. Some of them are great, some of them are not so. Well, I can tell you that kettlebell training is just as effective as the best of them, plus it's much more efficient than most. There are at least 10 reasons I can name you why you should train with kettlebells for your strength and conditioning for grappling. Number one, it's unparalleled efficiency. Unparalleled. The exercises, the main events of this program, the swing, the get-up, the clean and jerk, have a tremendously wide carryover to a great variety of events. They improve performance in sports as diverse as powerlifting and ultra endurance running. So obviously they improve your fighting ability as well. Great carryover. Number two, you can develop strength, power, and conditioning at the same time. Yes, I know there are other methods they say that you can do that, but normally they come with strings attached. For example, you start doing high reps in a barbell power clean, something's going to blow. Not a good idea to do that with a barbell. Well, let's say bodyweight exercises. Great exercises for strength, great exercise for the mastery of your body, less so for conditioning, less so for applying external forces. And there are many other ways you can do it. So kettlebells are highly efficient. Number three, you build all-terrain strength. What does it mean? Many exercises lock you in a very linear pattern, and you just get strong in that very linear pattern, which is not the way your sport is. So kettlebells load you from so many different directions. So if you show a heavy kettlebell who's the boss, as it tries to yank you this way and that way, You develop strength, not just strength in direct planes, but as one of my colleagues called the in-between strength. Very important. Number 4, we're looking at a steep learning curve. The Olympic lifts with a bar, they're great. And it takes years to learn, not to even master these lifts, even with an expert coach. Kettlebells offer you a great do-it-yourself option because the skills are simple. The skills can be learned quickly at your own home. Number 5 is the kettlebells are perfect for the BJJ because, as one of our colleagues, Carl Agnelli, said, it's all about hips and grips, hips and grips. And as you'll find out very soon, kettlebells are all about hips and grips. So it'll definitely prepare you for your sport. But on the other hand, they also balance out the BJJ posture. Another one of our colleagues said, don't live in your sports posture. So if you're flexed, rounded over, curled in a ball, you have to do it on the mat. You don't need to go through your life this way. Because if you do, you're going to be a hurting unit. And your career is not going to be as long. So various extension exercises that we're practicing, swings, cleans, overhead lifts, they're going to help you open up. They're going to help you counter the negative effects of your sport-specific posture. Number 7, cycling of tension and relaxation. Very few sports allow you extreme tension or extreme relaxation. Powerlifting, you have total tension, extreme total tension. Ultra-endurance swimming, extreme relaxation. Most other sports, and definitely all combat sports, they demand an interplay of tension and relaxation. So the kettlebell exercises are designed in such a way where there's constant interplay between tension and relaxation. So you're acquiring this mastery of how to dial the skill up and down. Resilience. The get up, for example, one of the key moves that we're presenting in this program, has a tremendous record of bulletproofing the pretty messed up carcasses of some serious athletes with high mileage, shoulders and other parts of the body. So we're not just looking at high performance, we're looking at resilience as well. We're looking at staying in the game. And moves like kettlebell get-ups are unparalleled for that. Ergonomic perfection, another item. So dumbbells, let's say you start pressing dumbbells overhead. When they start getting large, you start bumping into each other. You can't even clean them right here. Let's say you start putting up the barbell overhead. Again, that puts a lot of stress on your wrists. Kettlebells are ergonomically perfect. They put your shoulder in that perfect offloaded position, so it gives you perfect stretch and perfect stability. And when you're swinging this between your legs, again, that compact offset center of gravity, it's ergonomic perfection. So you're going to find you're going to really enjoy this type of training. It's a natural training. And finally, last but not least, you can replace an entire gym with just several kettlebells. Yeah, you could have a lot of different equipment. Maybe you enjoy doing something with X, Y, Z, and whatever, but you really don't have to do that. And if you remember that your priority, your game, is grappling, if you remember that you're taking on strength and conditioning as a way to enhance your performance on the mat, I cannot see any convincing reason why would you choose a complex and equipment-demanding method. Therefore, kettlebells are for you. We're going to start talking about the breathing mastery. Breathing correctly is fundamental to high levels of performance, strength, power, endurance in any sport. So there are several important concepts that we're going to introduce to you. The first one is called power breathing. To understand power breathing, you need to understand something, the way your muscles are wired to your brain. If you think about your brain as the music player, and if you think about your muscles as the loudspeakers, the amount of internal pressure, the intra-abdominal pressure, you can think of it as the amplifier, as the volume control. So for example, if you're letting all your breath out passively when you're stretching, your muscles are going to relax. On the other hand, if you crank it up, create high pressure in your abdomen, your strength will automatically increase. So high pressure breathing for strength, low pressure breathing for relaxing. And in sports, it's very important to be able to know when to choose which one. So the power breathing technique, the one where you're just compressing your breath, is very, very powerful for making you stronger on the mat, with the kettlebell, with the barbell, anywhere else. And it's also a tremendously effective way to develop your abdominal strength. You're gonna have very strong abs. So here's how we do this. But before we do, I just want to warn you that this technique is not for everybody. If you have high blood pressure or other cardiovascular conditions, you need to clear that with your doctor. So step one, you take a breath, normal breath into your abdomen, just normal breath, not huge, not minimal. Step two, imagine the nature calls. You gotta hit the John right now, and it's number one and number two, and it's really bad. So you gotta pull everything up. So you're pulling up your pelvic floor. Then you put your tongue between your teeth, and you start hissing in this particular manner. So notice that we are ratcheting the tension up. Normal breath. And as you're doing that, you will feel your abdominals contract. Do not go into spinal flexion. We're not trying to round your back. We're not trying to perform a crunch. We're just trying to feel that your abs are getting very strong and very, very solid, and you're creating this great feeling of compression. Understand also that the tension and the compression should take place below your armpits. So don't try to send the pressure into your head, into your cheeks. You're not blowing up a balloon and blowing your head up. The pressure is all going down low while you're keeping your face impassive. So you take a breath, and relax. So this type of breathing, we engage this type of breathing in everything that we do. Any kind of strength efforts that we do, whether it's a slow effort like a press or squat, or it's a fast effort like a push press, or a clean, or a swing. The only difference is when you're performing quick movements like the swing, the action is really explosive. It's like punching. So instead of as we might for a press, this becomes that powerful ki that drives the effort. Understand that kiing is not just about psychology. You're not going to scare the kettlebell with loud ki. It's about creating this high internal pressure that automatically increases your strength. So this is called power breathing. But you also got to understand that there's a downside to that, because it tires you out, especially if you hold your breath. Is there any time to hold your breath? Yeah, there are times to hold your breath. Right before you start any kind of a high effort movement. It's a reflex. So you're walking over to the bar, heavy barbell, pick up the deadlift, you inhale, you tighten up, you hold your breath, and then on top, finally you power breathe on the top. But the longer is the breath hold, the less is your endurance. Because not only are you not getting any oxygen when you're holding your breath, also at the same time you're impeding the circulation. So because of this impeded circulation, your endurance is going to tank. And that's why in some sports where endurance is far more important than strength, and in some activities like dance, they try to untrain the breath holds altogether, even though it's a reflex. It's a natural reflex that makes you stronger. So the answer for you is this. Breath holds are great, very brief, at certain moments, at certain transitions, and then after that, we're going to power breathe. And after that, you breathe steady. That's what you do. The next thing I'm going to show you how to apply some of these concepts when you're under static load. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to join me. Now the question is how to power breathe when you are under long static pressure. If you hold your breath for a long time, you'll pass out. And well, besides, you're going to have no endurance whatsoever. This is how we do that. It's called breathing behind the shield. Okay, Mike, speak to me.
I am your father.
Let's be more convincing.
I am your father.
Rank, name, serial number. Speak up.
I am your father.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. So the idea of this concept is called, in some karate styles, it's called breathing behind the shield, is to be able to maintain intra-abdominal pressure, which is essential for stability of your spine and for your health and also for your strength, while at the same time keep the oxygen flowing. So what you're doing is you are literally breathing behind the shield. So you're keeping tight, but you're breathing. That's the kind of breathing we're going to do in the get-up. Remember also I told you that breath holds make you strong for a brief period of time. So in the get-up, for example, you will breathe behind the shield in this manner, but occasionally when you're making high force transitions, hard transitions, you're going to have this brief breath holds. I want you to think about your breath holds not just as breath holds. I want you to use this Russian imagery of the Valsalva maneuver and have this great imagery. It's an exhalation that hasn't happened. An exhalation that hasn't happened. Exhalation that hasn't happened. Fractional breathing was originally designed for running. And what we're going to use this breathing for is for our swings, to get more oxygen while staying strong while performing the swings. And you're also going to use that for emergency recovery. You can do that for kettlebell drills, or you can do that after your grappling sparring. So what is fractional breathing? In fractional breathing, you divide up the phases of inhalation and exhalation into multiple portions. So for example, the original fractional breathing, as it was designed for running, would have the runner take 4 mini inhales. So you're running in, 4 inhales, one on top of each other. And then 2 quick exhales. So the purpose of that was to give the time for the oxygen to get into your lungs and to get absorbed into your blood, and then to quickly blast out carbon dioxide out of your system. It's called fractional breathing, when there is simply not enough time to get the oxygen. So how do we do it in the swing? In the swing, we power breathe on the top, and then we do 2 inhales on the way down. If we did only 1 inhale, the movement is too quick. We're just not going to be able to get enough air. But if we do 2, so this is fractional breathing as it applies to the swing. And again, you inhale sharply through your nose, very sharply. Your inhale is so sharp that it looks like you got a nose job. Your nose just gets stuck together. Now, emergency recovery. You just had a very hard sparring session, and you're really sucking wind. And you want to stand like this and go, bad idea. Even though this frees up the diaphragm to work efficiently, this could be really hard on your back. Fractional breathing is much better. What you do is take 4 sharp inhales through your nose and 1 to 2 sharp exhalations through your mouth. So it looks like this. Here you are, you're sucking wind, you're dying. And the only time to do that is whenever you're really sucking wind. Because right now I'm doing this out of context, standing around doing nothing, teaching how to breathe. I'm getting all alert because I'm hyperventilating, washing out carbon dioxide. This is not a technique to use under normal circumstances. This is only for emergency recovery. So 2 out, very powerfully, 4 in, and trying to expand. Now finally, when things have settled down and you're starting to breathe a little bit easier, then you can switch to a different type of recovery breathing. The best name for it I heard was Darth Vader breathing, because that's exactly what it sounds. And what it is, it's exhaling through a partially closed vocal cords. So what this does is slows down the airflow and exhalation. There are many physiological reasons why this works, and it's outside the scope of this video, but I'm telling you that the following breathing I'm going to show you was tested on Russian grapplers, and they found the recovery was much faster than any other type of recovery. Darth Vader breathing, it's kind of like a very low-grade power breathing. You may close your mouth, you can keep your mouth open, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that you're inhaling through your nose, but you're exhaling through partially constricted vocal cords. So If you are still kind of sucking wind a little bit after the emergency breathing, make the exhale fairly short, like a 3-second. But as your recovery improves better and better, you're feeling better, try to extend the exhalation as long as possible and squeeze some of this air out. This reminds you very much of the karate technique breathing skill of Shinkoku, when you're pulling it in and you're squeezing it all out and cough out the rest of the air. The only difference is you're not assuming Sanchin stance, you're not doing dynamic tension, but you're pulling it in. That allows you to clear CO2. This allows you to calm down. This allows you also to train your respiratory muscles, so your exhalation muscles are just as strong as your inhalation muscles. That's Darth Vader breathing. So the Darth Vader breathing between your sets of exercises, after you're rolling around, pretty much after anything. Very powerful technique. And finally, the talk test, the last technique I want to talk to you about. Back decades ago, an Oxford professor was teaching mountaineers, don't climb faster than you can talk. Don't climb faster than you can talk. In the same vein, as StrongFirst would say, do not lift faster than you can talk. What does it mean? It means that between your sets of your kettlebell swings, get-ups, jerks, cleans, and so on, you need to rest long enough until you can maintain a normal conversation. Not giving the Gettysburg Address, mind you, but you can speak in short sentences. For example, I can speak in short sentences. Or you can say, American viewers, you can speak the Oath of Allegiance. So that's been tested for the talk test. What's the purpose of the talk test? The purpose of the talk test is to make sure that you're training aerobically, make sure you're recovering sufficiently. There will be times, mostly on the mat, when you're going to suck wind, but this is not the time when you do your kettlebell training, when you do your power training and strength aerobic training. So talk test before every set of your swings, cleans, get-ups, whatever is on the menu for this video. You are to be able to test yourself, say a couple sentences, and you should be able to speak them. As opposed to, oh, I'm just fine. No, you're not fine. So that's the talk test. Do not lift faster than you can talk. We are going to speak about kettlebell training safety. Item number 1, check with your doctor the basic stuff, but it's no joke. This is a very intense and very demanding training, cardiovascularly, orthopedically, so don't skip it. Number 2, always be aware of your surroundings. Always. Make sure that there are no people nearby you. Let's say that you let go of the kettlebell when you're doing swings. Your grip gave out. You don't want to knock somebody out or kill somebody. People, pets. You don't want to have any stuff around that you don't want to damage. You want to have an area where you feel comfortable you can just let go of the kettlebell if something goes wrong in your set. And if you're feeling too protective about your pretty little furniture, I think either you're training in the wrong place or your priorities are just out of whack. You need to have a surface that is hard. A mat, like a jiu-jitsu mat, is not optimal for this, even though we're doing demos here. Ideal surface would be something like a rubberized mat in the gym, or better yet, nice grass. You just go outside. You just let the kettlebell go. And be aware, kids, pets, the sun. Where's the sun? You're doing the get up. Do you want to be looking up at the sun? You don't want to be looking up at the sun. Number 3, always train barefoot. Those cute shoes, cushy, pretty, colorful, they're for sissies. They're definitely not for serious athletes. You're already used to training barefoot, so train barefoot. Yeah, you could use bare flat shoes as well, but since you're used to training barefoot, just stick with that. Number 4, never contest for space with a kettlebell. What does that mean? The kettlebell is right here. The kettlebell wants to come down. Let's say you're losing your get up. Your grip is funky. You feel something uncomfortable. You decided to drop it. Don't fight it. Step out. Get out of the way. Do not contest with a kettlebell. And remember that quick feet are happy feet. Number 5, practice all safety measures at all times. Russian range masters have a saying that once a year, even an unloaded gun will shoot. So you got to treat your kettlebell as if it's always loaded, always. And you have to respect every kettlebell, including the tiniest one you use for a warm-up. In fact, if you talk to serious lifters, power lifters, you will find that injuries they have sustained throughout their career typically almost never from performing maximal lifts in competition. Typically, it's something very light and fluffy, like disrespecting a warm-up set or putting away barbell plates with suboptimal mechanics. So never do that. Dial in a perfect groove. Always use a perfect groove and perfect technique. So the kettlebell is always loaded. Number 6, prioritize quality over quantity in your training. Greg Cook, top sports physical therapist, stresses that your body will always trade quality for quantity. If you just insist on doing more reps, you're going to get sloppy. You're going to do bad reps. It's not important how many reps you can do. It's important how many perfect reps that you can do. Which brings us to the point. We have something in StrongFirst called the stop signs. The stop signs limit your training in such a way so the training load is optimal. So there are 5 stop signs. So you have to stop your set whenever any one of these things happen, or preferably before any one of these things happen. So stop number 1, item number 1, stop sign number 1, when the rep speed starts dropping. So let's say you're doing swings and you're powerful, you're fast, and suddenly you're not quite as fast, you're done. We don't want to sustain suboptimal quality. Endurance, you understand the definition of endurance. Endurance is not just the ability to keep on going. Endurance is the ability to sustain a certain level of performance for a long time. If you are punching, and if your punches cannot knock out your little sister, that's not endurance. I don't know what that is, but it's something else. So sustain the quality, power, and strength. So if the speed drops, you're done. If the tempo drops, you're done. So in some exercise, there is a particular tempo. So you go to a certain tempo, and if it starts slowing down, it's over. In the exercise we're doing right here, it's not so applicable, but for example, if you were to do pull-ups. So you're doing pull-ups, picking up, keeping at a good pace, and suddenly you start slowing down. At this point, those last reps, they're only good for the test. They're not good for your training. Next item, 3, stop sign. Your technique changes in any way. You may not allow your technique to change in any way. Period. Out of the question. There's no compromise. Number 4, the rate of perceived exertion goes above 8 on the 8 to 10 scale. Save your 10s and 9s for the mat. Save those numbers for your competition, for the tournament. In training, the efforts should be significant, but not maximal. Number 5, you're gasping for air. If you're gasping for air, you're prey. You're toast. You're over. Don't get to that point. And let's hope the breathing techniques we have taught you also will prevent you from doing that. So in summary, remember all the stop signs, and don't forget that the kettlebell is always loaded. The goblet squat not only just trains the fundamental squat patterns that's important to every athlete, even if the squat is not necessarily a part of your sport. It loosens and opens up your hips, which you will very much appreciate once you're on the mat. John, would you please demonstrate? Thank you, John. So you start by grabbing the bell by the horns and picking it up. So you're going to keep your back flat, and you just grab it up, bring it up to here. You can also hold it in this manner, whatever you prefer. Shoulders are down. And then you're going to start squatting. Start with your feet approximately shoulder width apart, maybe slightly wider, with your toes slightly turned out. That's your initial stance. Later on, we'll figure it out. We'll optimize this stance. To start the squat, here's what you got to think about. Think of aiming your butt at 7 o'clock. So if to go straight down would be 6, I want you to aim your butt at 7 as if you're trying to aim it for a curb, like to sit on a curb. Keep your spine tall as you're doing it. Keep your shoulders down. And start the squat by opening your knees, pushing your knees out. That's the very first thing you got to do. So by pushing the knees out, you're going to open up your hips. And then sink in as deep as you can, comfortably, without experiencing pain, any kind of a discomfort, and without letting your back round. So, and as you progress on the squat, you're going to go deeper and deeper. So let's pretend that John cannot quite squat rock bottom yet. Thank you, John. The same thing should happen to you in your practice. You're going to just go slightly deeper and deeper as you're getting loosened up. So now what we're going to try is we're going to aim to get your elbows on the inside of your thigh. You know, that teardrop muscle, vastus medialis. So the goal is eventually for you to go deep enough until your elbows are pushing out just a little bit against your inner thighs. At that point, you can just pause, and while you're staying tall, you can just relax and sink deeper. But even as you relax, keep your spine straight. Keep your spine completely straight. Then re-engage, take a breath. Remember power breathing, take a breath. Hey, grunt, and pop back up. Then again, go down, pause, keep pushing your knees out. Hey, and pop back up. Let's see, John. Notice how he's pushing his knees out. Relax, let some air out. And now inhale, re-engage. Nice. Remember, passive exhalation, stretch. Hard exhalation, strength. Excellent. Thank you, John. The next element we're going to add is what we call prying. So quite literally, we're going to pry your joints loose in a lot of different directions. So what John is going to do is he's going to descend into the bottom of the goblet squat, his elbows inside his knees, push them out. Then he's going to start moving his hips in different directions. He's going to try to move his pelvis side to side. He's going to try to separate his pelvis into two halves. Believe it or not, there are two halves in your pelvis, and if they don't move, you have problems. He's going to try to pull his hips out of the sockets. He's going to rotate his torso. He's going to make all these different movements, and watch what's going to happen. Please, John. And release the air, but stay tall. Notice how he's staying very tall without craning his neck. He's moving in different directions. Do you notice even though his spine is staying very straight, his body is sinking lower and lower and lower and lower. And let's get up. And let's turn facing away from me. Let's see one more different angle. You're going to see some other cool type of prying. Pause, and now we'll do a couple curls. Watch what starts happening. As John is doing curls, it shifts his weight back and forth. It pries his weight. He keeps sinking deeper and deeper. And grunt and come up, and park the belt. Excellent. So that's the idea. That's the progression. And you take your time with this progression within the training session and over time as well. After a few sets, what you need to do when you're down on the bottom is you need to optimize your stance. As I mentioned, start approximately a little bit wider than your shoulders or around your shoulders. But then later on, when you're on the bottom, start shuffling your feet. Go side to side, a little bit in, a little bit out, until you find a place where your knees and your feet are tracking. They're perfectly tracking. Your heels are down, because your heels are always down in the squat, always. And nothing hurts and everything feels absolutely terrific. And if I told you to stay there and have a smoke, you might be able to do that. We'll test that too. So let's shoulder shuffle. So watch how he's going to move his feet, a little bit in, a little out, move his heel, moves his toes. He already got his stance, so he doesn't really need to do it, but he's still going to find a more comfortable place. Notice he's sinking even deeper. Chest high, John, stay tall. Excellent. And grunt, hey! And get up and park. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a goblet squat that is going to make your legs strong and flexible. Before we do one of the best kettlebell exercises and one of the best exercises, period, the swing, you need to learn how to do the deadlift, which is also very high up in the exercise ranking. Mike, let's see it. This is the most fundamental human movement there is, picking up a weight from the ground. Thank you, Mike. And we're going to build this in several steps. A classic way to learn a skill is to first learn the beginning of the skill and then the end of the skill, and then let the rest fill itself in. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to start with the deadlift lockout. And for that, we're going to do a drill called the StrongFirst hip bridge. Mike, please demonstrate. He's going to take a pair of shoes, cushy shoes, put them between his knees. He's going to take a breath, dig his heels into the ground, and lift his hips as high as possible. And relax. And let's do it one more time. As high as you can, and relax. The idea here is not endurance. You're not trying to hold it up there. The idea is to range of motion, try to get higher and higher, because our goal is to have his thighs level with his torso. Let's see it. So you got to get this much hip extension, and relax, Mike. So this sort of clenching the butt cheeks on the top of the deadlift, the swing, any kind of intense or throwing a knee at somebody, that happens on top of any kind of a hip-intensive athletic action. You may wonder, why are we using shoes? What's the purpose of the shoes? It's a little technique to prevent you from overarching your back. By squeezing the shoes, you're forced to extend your hips as opposed to arch your lower back, which is a typical problem in BJJ, overworked lower back and underworked glutes. And we're here to fix it. The deadlift is not a squat. The well-meaning by wrong advice, don't lift with your back, lift with your legs. It sounds very, very cute, but go ahead, try and do that. You can't lift much anything. No, you gotta lift with your hips. So what the deadlift is the hip hinge. And we're gonna work on your hip hinge right now. Mike, please step with your toes and the balls of your feet elevated on this object. So you're finding something like a 2x4, couple of books. You're going to lift up the fronts of your feet. The purpose of that is to prevent the sliding of your knees. So you just cannot do that. We're going to focus that movement right in your hips. So you stand about shoulder width apart as he does. Now what he's going to do is going to put his hands on the creases, his hip creases. He's going to look straight ahead. And now he's going to chop himself with his hands and let his butt go back as far as possible. Go ahead, Mike. As far as you can, there we go. And look straight ahead. And squeeze your butt cheeks and come up. So we'll squeeze your cheeks the same way you do it during the bridge. So what is happening right here is the 2x4, or this object, prevents his knees from slipping forward. And as long as he insists on keeping his back straight, long, he has to bend through his hips, which is exactly what we're trying to do. So the intention is pushing your butt as far as possible while chopping yourself here and keeping the spine long. You may find that you're tight in this position, you can't get down very far. In that case, you could add a little stretching. Remember that breathing, that relaxed breathing you learned earlier? All right, Mike, so let's hip hinge down. Let's pretend you're tight. Let's not go all the way down. Look straight ahead. Okay, take a breath. Squeeze the glutes and release your breath. Notice how he's dropping deeper, he's stretching. Okay, squeeze your glutes, grip the ground with your toes and release. Take a breath, grip the ground with your toes, squeeze your glutes and release. and then take a breath and contract the glutes and stand up. And so this is how you work on your hip mobility, how you increase your hip flexion to get down deeper without compromising your back position. And our next step is the deadlift. Before taking on the deadlift, we're going to do Professor McGill's short stop drill. Mike, please place your hands above your quads, kind of a hip hinge, and slide your hands down and grab your quads above your kneecaps and pause. Now at this point, it's really important for you to activate the lats and perform an anti-shrug. So watch what he does. He contracted his lats and his shoulders went away from the ears, just the anti-shrug. Notice right now his shins are vertical or almost vertical. He looks very comfortable. His eyes are straight ahead. He's very, very solid. It's a very athletic stance, the short stop stance. And from there, he's pretty much ready to deadlift. So let's first stand up. So stand up, squeeze your cheeks, good. Notice the bell, we park the bell a little bit farther than you would put a barbell. Typically when you barbell deadlift, the weight is close to your shins or maybe in the center of your foot. Right now we have it a little bit behind. That's going to exaggerate this movement, give us a little bit more of a lat load, a little bit more of a glute load. So what Mike is going to do is as he's standing on the top, he's going to take a breath and he's going to hip hinge while trying to reach the kettlebell with long arms. The arms are going to be very long without looking at the kettlebell. So let's do that, Mike. Watch, he's going to push his butt back, look straight ahead. And when he pause, take the bell and come up with a grunt. Excellent. And then he's going to again inhale and sit back and park the bell in the exact same place, look straight ahead and relax and stand up without the bell. So start with the negative, it's the hip hinge, you push your butt back, try to keep this tight, keep this braced, so you can inhale either on the way down or right on the top, your choice. Then you hook the bell with your fingers, grip the deck with your fingers, with your toes. Then you're going to just contract the cheeks and just stand up as you do the bridge, the StrongFirst bridge. Let's do a couple of reps, Mike. Notice the first thing that moves on the way down is his butt. He pushes his hips back, and then he can relax on the bottom, contract the lats, there we go. Excellent. And sit back. Thank you, Mike. Notice that he respected the kettlebell until the very last moment. He didn't just let go, it's light, I can do so much more. It's not the point. You always respect the weight, never disrespect the weight. Do not step over the kettlebell. Do not step over a barbell. You do that in the Russian gym, you get beaten up and thrown out. You don't disrespect the weight. High-level athletic performance is the interplay between tension and relaxation. Extreme tension, that's strength, that's power. Relaxation, it's speed, it's endurance. And most people are kind of spend their lives stuck half between the on and the off switch. We practice tension, we practice strength with heavy lifts. We also got to practice relaxation. Practice this between sets of your lifts, practice this before going on the mat. These exercises are simply shaking. So you start just shaking things out. Start shaking tension off your body. Take it out. Shake it off. Shake. Shake your foot. Shake the fat off your muscles. Try to turn yourself into a rag doll. Ideally, what you should be able to do, you should be able to contract, make your body very hard and strong, and momentarily just relax it. These drills are called fast and loose.